Hey everyone, Dr. Robin Bond here. So, have you ever driven through a place that has volcanic rock and wondered, why isn't there a lot of stuff growing there? So this area was formed by the Columbia River flood basalts about 15 million years ago. And as you can see, it's still pretty rocky and there's still not a lot of stuff growing. You might think that's because this is a very dry climate, it doesn't get a lot of rain, so maybe that's why things aren't growing. But if you look at the recent lava flows in Hawaii, you realize that can't be the case because this is an area that gets plenty of rain. So this is in Kilauea Iki on the big island of Hawaii. And it's a very wet climate. If you just go up above the rim of this volcano, you can see it's pretty green. And if you go a mile or so away, then you start seeing the really incredible dark green, thick foliage. So I like to look at things up close and personal. That is actually my brand of science, is looking at how biology interacts with geology through chemistry. So let's take a look here. Here's what we have on our rocks. We have lichen. And look at this stuff. So there is stuff growing here. It's just very, very small stuff. And the reason is this rock is pretty hard. You can see there's no soil. So when you have anything that needs to put down roots, it can't go very far into the rock. So let's imagine this is lichen growing on a rock. Over time, the lichen is going to put down roots into the rock, and it does this by exuding chemicals that actually eat away at the rock. And as those roots move down, as the lichen eats away at the rock, you get cracks forming. So that's one way that rocks can break down, just by having the lichen grow. And also we get this process called weathering, physical weathering. So imagine a raindrop rolling down the surface of a rock. As it does so, it might dissolve a tiny little part of the rock. That little bit of the rock would end up down at the bottom along with the raindrop. And then of course, you'd get another raindrop because, raindrops tend to come in groups. And so that raindrop would roll down the rock and take out a little piece of the rock, get that dissolved, and that piece of rock would end up at the bottom also. So over time, you could have more and more teeny rock bits, aka soil, at the base of the rock. And there's another way rocks can break apart. Do you see this crack here? Water will get in there, and then during the winter, that water will actually freeze, and as it freezes, it expands, and that actually pushes the sides of the crack apart and widens it. And that helps break the rock. And so over time, the rock will start to fracture into smaller bits. And look, if you look right here, here's some rock that has broken apart. And you can see how it's broken because this part here used to be the outside and that part used to be the inside. So there's stuff growing on this side of the rock and not on that side of the rock. And you can now see in this broken rock, there's a little bit more stuff growing. There's more grasses and everything. Basically, anytime there's a crack in a rock, you can get stuff growing in there, which you can also see in these shots from Hawaii. Look at where everything's growing in cracks in the rock. As we get out here, now you can see a lot of this rock has been broken down into soil, and so you can start getting things like the sagebrush growing here. So things can grow on volcanic or other igneous rock, but it takes time. It takes time for the rock to break down, and that's why we frequently see not very much growing, especially on these nice cliffs of igneous rock over here, that basalt. All you see up there is that red stain from the lichen. So this is really a process that would happen in any rock, not just igneous rock. In fact, if you think about the rocks we looked at a couple weeks ago, you see that it is also in the process of breaking down. Now this one has broken down further. You can see we have actual trees growing on it, but it's still breaking down. How fast rocks weather depends on how hard they are and also how old they are. In this case, these are pretty old rocks and they're softer than the basalt we see in the Hawaiian Islands as well as here in eastern Washington. Weathering is a process that turns rocks into soil. It happens on a micro scale, so very tiny scale, and yet somehow it breaks down enormous rocks. So you may look at this landscape and think, that's pretty dead. I see stuff happening. And that's just another way I'll never see the world the same again. Hey everyone, hope you liked this video. If you did, click that like button. Next week we'll be looking at some of the cool things you can see around town. So be sure to subscribe so you can get that notification.